Hi, and welcome to this overview of our latest release, Redline. Redline is a new percussion instrument focused on tight, punchy, organic trailer drums. It's comprised of 4 different contact instruments. Organic, which is a collection of 18 ensemble recordings of acoustic percussion, including bass drums, odaiko, taiko, surdos, toms, snares, and various room shots. They are recorded with close and room microphones and heavily edited and processed to be very tight and punchy and dry without big long tails. Each ensemble has 5 velocity layers and 5 round robins per velocity layer. Next we have our hybrid instrument. This is the same collection of ensembles but reprocessed and mixed with electronic drums to add more punch while still keeping an overall very organic sound. Again, each ensemble has 5 velocity layers and 5 round robins per velocity layer. Next, we have our synthetic instrument, which is a collection of 14 ensembles created entirely from synths and electronic percussion, and then heavily processed. This adds more of a modern edge to the library with absolutely no organic sound at all. Still focusing on short, tight, punchy percussion, and again, each ensemble has 5 velocity layers and 5 round robins per layer. And last but not least, we have our rolls instrument. The rolls contain organic, hybrid, and synthetic drum rolls that are looped for indefinite playback. Each is recorded with 4 velocity layers that are controlled via the mod wheel, which allows you to create rolling crescendos of any length. And when you release the key, it will play a final hit. So let's quickly go over the user interface. It's almost identical across all instruments, so we won't duplicate this. But let's go over the organic user interface first. So on the left here, we have our controls section. That's going to give you control of the dynamics. So when dialed all the way down, you can still have, when you play softer velocities, you're still going to get the softer recordings, but they're going to be loud in playback. When you crank that all the way up, you'll be able to go from 0 to 100. And next to that, we have the release control, which just is an ADSR release, so you can kind of tame the tails. Like I said, these are already recorded pretty short and edited pretty short, but if you want even shorter, you can drop those tails off with the release knob. Next to that, we have the close room mic control volumes here. So you can dial that in however you see fit, but this library is definitely made to focus on that close, punchy sound. Next up here, we have our EQ section. That's going to give you a low gain control, mid gain control, and high gain control. And below that, the bandwidth controls for each of those. We have our filters section. Just going to give you a basic low pass filter, high pass filter, and then the resonance control for each of those filters. Let's skip over all the way to the right. We've got our reverb, which is just a basic hall reverb that you can turn on and off here. You've got your pre-delay, decay, low shelf, high damping, and amount controls here. Then if we go up to our delay, we have our on-off controls here. We have our time, feedback, low cut, high cut, and amount controls. Our DAW sync control, which when enabled will make the time knob show note values. And when off, it will show millisecond values. And then ping pong. When enabled, this is just going to make the delays bounce back and forth left to right in speakers. Now back to the center here is our crush knob. This is a custom blend of compression and tape saturation, so as you dial it up, you're going to get a little more crushed sounding, a little more aggressive, in some cases a little more distorted sounding. So you can just dial that in however you see fit. Depends on your composition, obviously, but that can just give you a little more power. Now let's talk about the keyboard layout. So we start on C1 here, and the 18 ensembles are mapped across the white keys. They're put in pairs, so even though there's 18 ensemble recordings, we kind of did them in sort of matched pairs. So like the first 2 are your bass drum ensembles, and the next 2 are both odaiko ensembles, and so forth. The reason we did that is it gives you the ability to play between those 2 notes. They're not the same samples, so they're going to give you a little more variety as you play between the two, but also with all the round robins, you just kind of double that variety. So you can play on one note and it sounds great, or you can play on the two notes. So you've got bass drums, odaikos, surdos, taikos, toms. There's 4 different tom ensembles, snares, and then rim shots fill it up at the end. Then we double mapped that entire range 3 octaves up so that you can play with both hands easily. These are the exact same samples up here as down here. So you're not going to want to play, for example, C4 and C1 at the exact same time because they're going to get phased out because they're the exact same samples. But having them double mapped like that just does make it a little bit easier for playback. So now that we've covered the GUI, let's go ahead and jump in and hear some of this. I'm just going to play through real quick. Okay, so let's go ahead and check out some of the controls so you can hear how they affect things. So the dynamics control, I'm going to dial that all the way down to 0 and play some of these with different velocities so you can kind of get an idea of this. All right, and let's take a look at this crush knob and kind of hear how that affects the sound. As you can hear, it kind of goes from subtle to a little more slamming. It's a really nice effect, and to dial that in, especially when you're mixing this with other percussion libraries and into a full mix, you'll find that very useful to help it cut through. So let's go ahead and move on to the hybrid instrument next. Okay, with the hybrid instrument, it's the exact same UI as the organic instrument, so we're not going to go over all of that. We're just going to jump right into the playthrough. Okay, and again, you've got all the same controls, but let's hear how the crush knob affects these. It's going to be a little more drastic on these hybrid drums, so it'll get a little more distorted as we go up high. And like I said, the rest of the UI is exactly the same, and the same mapping across the keyboard as the organic instrument, so no need to go over that. Let's go ahead and move on to the synthetic instrument next. Okay, there's a couple of small differences here on the UI. Well, actually, really just one main difference. You'll notice there's no close or room mic controls. Since these are synthetic drums, they were obviously not recorded in a space, so we did not have any close or room mics. So that's just a missing thing here. So other than that, the rest of the UI is the same. The layout on the keyboard is pretty much the same. We still tried to make kind of somewhat matching pairs of these ensembles, but they're kind of made more to play individually anyway. And they're spread across here and double mapped up here. So very similar to the others, just a few less ensembles, and obviously a very different sound. So let's go ahead and play through these. Okay, so let's go ahead and dial in. We'll change the release a little bit, make them a little shorter, and then start punching up that crush knob. Obviously, the crush knob cranked all the way up is not something you're going to use on a regular basis, but sometimes it's pretty nice to just make a real crunchy synthetic drum loop, and there you have it. That's going to do the trick. So let's go ahead and move on to the last instrument, which is the rolls instrument. Okay, just a couple of small changes to the UI here. We don't have dynamics control because, like I mentioned earlier, that's controlled via the mod wheel. So what we have is two different releases here. So there's the release for the actual roll samples, and then there's the release for the hit that plays when you let go of the key. That just allows you a little more fine control. Again, we have the close and room mics here. Those will only apply to the organic and hybrid rolls because there's no close and room mic samples separated for the hybrid or for the synthetic rolls. But the other difference is the keyboard layout. So starting on C2, we have our organic rolls on the white keys up to here. Then on the next octave, we have our hybrid rolls starting on C3 up to here. And then finally on the last octave from starting on C4, we have 4 different synthetic rolls. So let's go ahead and play through these. And the cool thing about these, aside from just controlling it all via the mod wheel, is you can play these in combinations. So you can play them together and get your own kind of unique sound out of it. So let's go ahead and hear how these sound. And let's go ahead and adjust this hit release just so you can kind of hear what I'm talking about. All right, I think that about covers it. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and kind of learning a little more about Redline. And I really hope you enjoy adding Redline trailer drums to your trailer percussion arsenal. Thanks so much for watching. Till next time.